John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave, while weep the sons of bondage whom he ventured all to save. But though he sleeps, his life was lost while struggling for the slave. His soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory,
Welcome
glory, hallelujah.
to War of the Rebellion, Stories of the Civil War. I'm your host, Leon, and this is a reading of the regimental history under the Maltese Cross, Antietam to Appomattox, the Loyal Uprising in western Pennsylvania. From 1861 to 1865, Campaign's 155th Pennsylvania Regiment, narrated by the rank and file. Brevet Major General A.L. Pearson. Regimental Tribute, adopted January 9th, 1903. Death has once more invaded our ranks. This time, taking from us our brave and beloved commander, General Alfred L. Pearson, who, after a long and heroic battle against disease, has at last yielded up his gallant spirit, and his name is now added to the lengthening roll of our dead. General Pearson was born in the year 1837 in the city of Pittsburgh, where his parents, pioneer English settlers of the city, had located early in the last century. After passing through the public schools of his native city, he prepared for a collegiate course at the well-known Allegheny College at Meadville, graduating in the year 1860, a few months before the Civil War broke out, and entered upon the study of the law with the late E.P. Jones, Esquire, of the Pittsburgh Bar. His legal studies, however, were soon interrupted by the fall of Sumter, and a year later he entered the Union Army as a captain of Company A, 155th Regiment Pennsylvania Volunteers, and participated in all the battles fought by the 5th Corps of the Army of the Potomac, from Antietam to the surrender at Appomattox, some 28 in all, including many of the most sanguinary engagements of the war. He was promoted successfully to Major, Lieutenant Colonel, and Colonel of the regiment, then breveted Brigadier General and Brevet Major General for gallant and meritorious service in the field. At the Quaker Road on March 29, 1865, he led his brigade with conspicuous valor, taking the colors of his old regiment. He called upon the men to follow him, and soon the flag was waving inside the rebel lines, and the enemy was in full retreat. For brave and meritorious services in this battle, General Pearson was breveted Major General, and the Secretary of War awarded him a Medal of Honor. At Appomattox, on the 9th of April, 1865, he had command of the brigade's skirmish line, and was advancing to attack General Gordon's corps when the white flag of truce was displayed, and Generals Gordon and Wilcox of the Confederate Army came into our lines and arranged for a suspension of hostilities until General Lee could meet General Grant and settle the terms of final surrender. In the Grand Review in May 1865 of the Union armies in Washington, marking the close of the war, General Pearson was conspicuous in command of his regiment of zouave, bronzed veterans, who marched by platoons the length of Pennsylvania Avenue. On return to civil life, he was elected District Attorney of Allegheny County, and discharged the duties of the office with honor and ability. General Pearson, the last 10 or 15 years before his death, by presidential appointment, served on the Board of Managers of National Military Homes for Disabled Union Veterans. He was unremitting in the active duties of this position, visiting and inspecting the various military homes throughout the United States, up to the time of his decease. The National Board of Managers passed resolutions expressing high appreciation of General Pearson's services to the cause of Union veterans. General Pearson was a fine presence, soldierly in bearing, manly in his nature, genial and kindly in disposition. And his rare wit and infinite jest made him the soul of every reunion and every public entertainment. His humor, as gay as the firefly's light, played round every subject, and shone as it played. His wit, in the combat as gentle as bright, never carried a heart-stain away on its blade. Captain Samuel A. McKEE, by Sergeant John H. Kerr, of Company I. Captain Samuel A. McKEE was one of the best officers in the regiment. He was born in the city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in 1822, and early manifested a natural taste for military life. He served as a soldier in the Mexican War, and for many years, before the beginning of the Civil War, he commanded a military company in his native city known as the Jackson Independent Blues, which, under his careful training, became noted for proficiency in drill with the above-mentioned company. He entered the Union Army in the Civil War as captain of Company A, 12th Pennsylvania, on April 15, 1861. For 3 months, and again on July 22, 1861, as First Lieutenant of Company B, 62nd Regiment Pennsylvania Volunteers, commanded by Colonel Samuel W. Black, with whom he had served in Mexico, and fought in all the battles in which this regiment was engaged in McClelland's campaign on the peninsula. He was already a veteran in service and experience in August 1862, when he became the first captain of Company I, 155th Regiment Pennsylvania Volunteers, whereas most of the other officers of the regiment were just then taking their first lessons in the art of war. In person, he was tall and erect, soldierly in bearing, and with the voice of command. In temperament, he was calm and deliberate, never losing his self-control whether in camp, on the march, or in the tumult and confusion of battle. He was a strict disciplinarian, but exercised his authority with such impartiality and fairness that he always retained the respect and even the love of his men. He was modest and unassuming, cared little for the punctilious observance of deference to his rank, but was firm and inflexible in having his orders obeyed and executed. Though somewhat taciturn, he was ever kind and considerate to the members of his company, and never claimed social superiority over them. Under all circumstances, and at all times, he was the ideal soldier, and no braver man ever drew a sword or led his men amid the fire and flame of battle. His habits were exemplary, his life pure, and his character as citizen, patriot, and soldier without a stain. His record in the 2 wars is bright with imperishable deeds, and his name is worthy to be written on the nation's roll of honor. In all his service for his country, he never faltered in the discharge of duty, and in the many battles in which he fought, his constant valor and heroic example inspired his soldiers to stand firm in the crisis of disaster, or to press forward in the hour of victory. And when, at last, he led his command in that terrific charge against the works of the enemy at Petersburg on the 18th of June, 1864, he fell, as a brave captain would wish to fall, at the head of his men, leading them through the storm of leaden hail, forward to meet the foe. There remains, to the soldier dying on the field, from where his comrades swept forward to victory, or were hurled back in defeat, the undaunted courage that carried him forward with the colors of his command. And when it comes to the end, this courage abides with him. He has lived in simple ways. The soldier's life is not complex. The primitive virtues have come to the surface, and his existence has been a lucid one. He has known his companions, and they him, as no other condition of life would permit. Courage, endurance, faith, unselfishness, and trust in his comrades have been fully developed, and they are with him in death. And at the last, when he is face to face with the inevitable, these qualities are his comfort and consolation, and until his senses swim, and he is carried out upon the ebbing tide of his own blood, they comfort him. There would be some last conscious moments when earth has faded into a mirage, and he is alone with these thoughts and the Almighty. The honest struggle for the life, when God gave it, to his keeping is over, and he accepts death as he has accepted life, without fear, and with a manly heart. Those that in their close comradeship know of his valiant virtues, know how Captain McKee lived, and know he so died, with no one near, and yet not alone. When under cover of the darkness, they brought his body from under the guns of the enemy, and in the silence of the night gave him a soldier's burial upon the field where he fell. They recognized his virtues as an officer, and paid the last tribute to a valiant and true man. Right in the van, on the red rampart's slippery swell, with heart that beat a charge, fell forward, as befits a man. Captain George Presley McClelland, by his pastor. Born Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, November 11th, 1842. Died Davenport, Iowa, December 27th, 1898. George Presley McClelland went into the Civil War as a private and came out as a field officer. Step by step, he won his way by sheer merit and conspicuous gallantry. In the line at the deadly struggle at Antietam, he won the chevrons of a sergeant, and added the diamonds at Fredericksburg. At Gettysburg, hard by the graves of his colonial ancestry, he rose to wear the bars. And in the Wilderness, he proved worthy to command a company. He was wounded in the foot at North Anna, and while he was leading his regiment at Five Forks, the day before Richmond fell, his leg was crushed to splinters. When the war was over, he gave himself to the arts of peace. As a businessman, he was good to his employees, and he wrought faithfully at his desk while his strength lasted. Now, as this token tells, the ledger is closed. Of scholarly tastes, he improved his enforced leisure to develop the charm of culture and the choice accomplishments of travel abroad. He was a generous patron of the Academy of Sciences, and delighted in the achievements of those who turn the rocky leaves and read God's older testament to man. Men and brothers, this career commends to us this day the worth of a noble friendship. A full-orbed man must cherish the affectionate side of his nature. Some are embittered by suffering, but he was refined and chastened until his face was illumined as by a light shining through an alabaster vase. The favorite hymn, which he often sang with his most intimate friends, was this one we have just heard, beginning, quote, "How gentle God's commands," unquote. He planned for watching out the old year, as was his wont, but the Christmas feast was his last below. He did not feel fit to come to our communion table, but the spirit of that sacramental meal at Emos which adorned his walls, presided at his table. That good cheer made it, as he said, one of the most happy and heavenly days of his life. Together with his beloved companion, who for many years cherished this flickering flame of life with tender devotion, that no rude wind might blow it out, he read and discussed each day a page from his well-worn book. From it we take these words of comfort, which, had he been able, they would have been used on the day of his death. They could not have been more fittingly chosen for us who crave the consolation of God's grace. Quote, "We look not at the things which are seen, for the things that which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal." Unquote. The sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Our light affliction worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. By J.B.B. Corporal Horatio S. Harnish, Company H. A Comrade's Tribute by William D. Hartman, Company H. The writer submits a few lines in reference to Horatio S. Harnish, who with the writer, in response to the President's call for volunteers, enlisted in Company H, 155th Regiment, Pennsylvania Volunteers. Comrade Harnish and the writer soon became very intimate. We messed together, marched together, and went into our first battle side by side at Fredericksburg, in the charge on Maries Heights. The writer saw Comrade Harnish stagger and reel as he received a severe wound in the left cheek by a ball from behind that stone wall. His comrades saw no more of him until the 8th of April, 1863, when he returned to duty with the company. It was the day that our regiment and brigade was reviewed by President Lincoln. He was again in action with his company at the Battle of Chancellorsville on May 2nd and 3rd. Thence, on the long and hard marches to our own state, to Gettysburg, on July 2nd, in company with the rest of the 155th on Little Round Top, he bravely did his duty in that terrible encounter. On the never-to-be-forgotten 5th of May, 1864, in the Wilderness, we saw him for the last time as he went with the regiment into that awful battle. He faltered not, but, alas, went down with many other gallant and true soldiers before the enemy's storm of lead and hail. Horatio S. Harnish has long since been numbered with the silent dead. He has answered his last roll call, but the memory of his gallant deeds and true worth still lives. After the battle, it was the writer's lot to apprise his sister of the fact that her brother had been killed, to which she replied in the following letter. Quote, Reimersburg, Pennsylvania, May 30th, 1864. Mr. W. D. Hartman, Kerr Company H, 155th Regiment, Pennsylvania Volunteers. Dear friend, your letter came to hand bearing the very sad intelligence that my dear brother has fallen upon the battlefield, a sacrifice upon the altar of his country, which I believe, next to his God, was nearer his heart than anything on earth. Thank you for your kindness in writing. I am ever your friend. Mrs. Maggie J. Nail. Although more than 40 years have elapsed, yet the writer feels as though he owed this tribute to his brave, true friend and comrade in arms for the Union. All right. That was pretty good. Let's get into some show notes. First up, of course, we have Brevet Major General A.L. Pearson. The entire time I'm reading this beautiful obituary that they wrote for him, written by the regiment and then put into the history. I'm thinking nobody is ever writing something this beautiful at my funeral. It was so well done. It was very moving. But, to be nothing more than a college student and graduate, and then 5 years later, you are a major general. Talk about a career change. And, of course, moving on to Captain Samuel A. McKEE. He is just a salty old soldier. Oh my goodness. To have fought in the Mexican-American War. Then with McClelland on the Peninsula Campaign. You imagine this guy showing up as your captain. And you're like, oh, do you have any experience, Captain? And he's like, yes, I was fighting before you were born. Just this grizzled old veteran. And he's seen it all. Oh, what a great eulogy for a great American. To quote, forward as befits a man. What a phrase for somebody. Wow. All right. And Captain George McClelland, he comes in as a private and ends up as a field officer, just right in the very beginning of this eulogy. Like they're letting you know right now, like this is what happened to this guy. How crazy is that? And just wow. I'm constantly reminded by the varied experience in the Civil War, especially how that experience is viewed through the lens of being in the military. I can't fathom today a private becoming a captain. Very interesting. Moving on to the very last of these gentlemen. Hartman reading about Horatio Harnish and writing, instead of kind of everything else that we've had so far, it's just a simple soldier's tribute to his friend. And he felt obligated to make the world know about him and what a great soldier he was. Just like one vet to another. It's just incredible. It's really great. And remembering his best friend and recounting his deeds for us, what more could we ask from them? And the letter from his sister was very touching. But with that is the end of my notes. So I didn't notice that last week's episode had not actually been published to the website. It was waiting. That is changed now. And this week's will be going live tomorrow. So anyway, I hope you all have a great weekend wherever you are. Remember, this Saturday, Pacific Standard Time, I will be streaming on YouTube, and we can chat about the podcast and any questions you might have at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Come check it out. With that, thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Old John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave, while weep the sons of bondage whom he ventured all to save. But though he sleeps, his life was lost while struggling for the slave. His soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Hallelujah, for his soul is marching on. John Brown was a hero, undaunted, true and brave, and Kansas knew his valor when he fought her rights to save. And now, though the grass grows green above his grave, his soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Hallelujah, for his soul is marching on. He captured captured Harper's Ferry with us 19 men so few, and frightened old Virginia till she trembled through and through. They hung him for a traitor, themselves a traitorous crew, but a soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. For his soul is marching on. John Brown was John the Baptist, of the Christ we are to see. Christ who of the bondman shall the liberator be. And soon throughout the sunny South the slaves shall all be free, for his soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Hallelujah, for his soul is marching on. The conflict that he heralded, he looked from heaven to view on the army of the Union with its flag red, white, and blue. And heaven shall sing with anthems o'er the deed they mean to do, for his soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. For his soul is marching on. Soldiers of freedom, then strike while strike ye may, the death blow of oppression in a better time and way. The dawn of old John Brown has brightened into day, and his soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Hallelujah, for his soul is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah, for his soul is marching on. For his soul is marching on. For his soul is marching